Hey everybody, I'm G, and today I'm extremely excited to announce the biggest evolution to V0 yet. V0 today evolves vibe coding from novelty to business critical. Built for production apps and agents, V0's enterprise-grade security and integrations mean teams can reliably ship real software, not just spin-up demos. So let's get right into what the new V0 is all about. First of all, which I'm extremely excited about, is our new and expanded Git support. When I started coding, I of course started using Git because that's how you could take things from prototypes to real production-grade software with teams. So V0 is now building on the same common Git substrate that allows anyone to vibe code and collaborate with the rest of an engineering organization. So concretely, you can import any Git repo into V0, and now we have a Git panel where you can sort of audit and manage your changes over time, like branches and pull requests. And it also comes with a full, familiar editor experience. What's been happening with vibe coding and agentic engineering as a whole is that coding is sort of taking the back seat, and that's a bet that we made with V0. However, occasionally you do need to look at the code or make changes to it in a very fine-grained basis. And so now V0 has a complete VS Code editor built right in. So you no longer have to eject to a separate local editor or a cloud IDE just to keep iterating and unblock yourself. So editor, AI agents, previews, configuration, integrations, all in one place. Also, you can now secure your internal apps. Internal apps have been a huge use case for V0. Instead of procuring a bunch of software, you can just generate it. But you need deployment protection. You need connections to enterprise data sources like Snowflake that are secure. You can also use our AWS databases with secure connectivity and spin them up in seconds. The ease of use that vibe coding is known for can now live up to the rigorous enterprise requirements for shipping stable, secure, and scalable software. AI lowered the barrier to entry to writing code, but now we have to raise the bar for actually shipping it. And so I believe the time really is now. We're so lucky to be working at a time in the industry and the history of software where anyone can cook. Any idea you can dream up, you can turn into software. You can turn into pixels, basically instantly. But this freedom can create problems for enterprises. If anyone is cooking up in their own made up little kitchens and downloading tools and new agents, this is kind of a nightmare scenario for security, for data integrity, for privacy, for enterprises. It opens the door to shadow IT. And so V0 is solving this problem at the root because it's secure by design. It's banking on a decade of enterprise rigor and compliance and security that Vercel has been working on. So when you deploy with V0, you're deploying on Vercel's enterprise-grade infrastructure. It's fully secure behind single sign-on authentication. So if you have a bunch of people, you have a bunch of ideas brewing up and they get deployed, you don't want just internet access to internal tools, for example. And so Vercel can manage the authentication and data connections for these apps on the behalf of people that are actually working on them. So this is really unlocking unprecedented productivity, but on your own terms. So for teams, V0's new releases are quite special because they're enabling them to collaborate very, very closely. We know that demos are really easy to generate. It's obvious now that AI can spin up really cool prototypes. But prototypes fail because they live outside of real code bases. They create handoffs between tools and teams. It's kind of a nightmare situation if you think about it, right? Because you have design team over here cooking up an idea and a prototype and whatnot, but they're using a different tool chain, and then that means that engineers later have to rewrite it. Rewriting software sucks. This is why people don't want to migrate platforms. And so what V0 is now enabling is everyone can work with the same raw materials, and these handoffs are super, super seamless. The old software development lifecycle no longer reflects how teams can work today with AI. So vibe coding the old way kind of reinforces that friction. Different tools again. With V0, you can now ship real software fast. For team leaders, this is a really big deal. So if you're a marketing leader, you can now turn any idea into the kind of software that lives up to that engineering rigor. So if you have a creative idea, if you have an idea for how to convert better, V0 enables you to ship with the same tools, frameworks, and infrastructure as engineering. With our Git support, you can open up a pull request that gets reviewed by other agentic tooling and then gets merged. For product, prototypes are not just high fidelity, they're building on the same foundations. And for ops is gonna be quite the year, because instead of procuring a bunch of software that then you have to sort of tune and bend to your needs, you can now generate internal applications that are efficient, that are secure, that can be code reviewed, and in the process saved millions and millions and millions of dollars in software spend. So we are at an inflection point. In the future, people will look back on 2026 as the year that made it possible for anyone to build anything. The new V0 makes that available to everyone, individuals and enterprises, today. I also know that when I think about 2026, and when I speak to the Vercel team about our goals for the year, I know that a word will pop up time and time and time again. That word is agents. 2026 will be the year of agents. In fact, a decade from now, when we look back on how software continued to evolve, so much of what we will do at home and at work will be involving agents in some way, shape, or form. So Vercel is building the infrastructure for the agentic web. Until now, V0 has been building apps, pixels, forms, clickety-clackety. Now, V0 is for building AI agents. That's the next evolution. So this is where software development is headed. And with the new V0, you're already on the platform that unlocks the future of software. V0 will take you there. So let's hand it off to show you what it's all about.
Thanks, G. Hey folks, my name is Ari and I'm the product manager for V0. Today I'm going to show you a demo of how you can use V0 with anyone on your team to contribute to an existing repository. The first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to load that repository that we want to work on into V0. The repository I'm going to use right now is one called Skills Leaderboard. It actually walks through all the top skills that users are adding to their AI setups. You'll see the first thing that happens is that when I import the repository, it allows me to connect to an existing Vercel project. What this means is that all my environment variables, my integrations, everything I would need to set up my dev environment in the cloud is already pre-set up. I can set a base branch, I can choose a team and a project, and I can click continue. And what V0 will do is it'll actually open up a chat with that project loaded up into the file system and actually allow me to collaborate and work directly with it. In the background, what's actually happening is we're loading an entire virtual machine, loading your repository into it, and actually allowing you to interact with the file system, get a running preview of it, and actually also see a lot of the cool things that V0 does under the hood. The first thing you'll notice is that you actually get a live preview of the application, just like you did with any other V0 generation that you made from scratch. And there we have it. You can see right here, you can see our skills.sh kind of application running. And in here, you can see we can search through a bunch of skills. We can see the top ones that users are actually working with, all in the V0 preview. What we're going to do actually is have V0 implement a pretty cool new feature. What we want is for V0 to implement a little rating system that allows you to open up a skill, give it a rating, decide out of 1 out of 5 stars how much do you actually like the skill, and actually show that rating on the home page. So let's kick it off. Let's say, hey V0, can you implement the ability for users to rate each skill in the leaderboard and show the average rating for the skill on the home page. We're actually using Redis to store information under the hood for this application. So that's the data store we're going to ask V0 to use. So we should say you should store the rating for each skill in Redis under a new key. And it's kind of scary to have this application doesn't have auth, but we are using Redis, so maybe we can have it implement some basic rate limiting so users aren't just spamming rating buttons. So let's say be sure to prevent the user from spamming ratings and skewing the average. And we can tell V0 right now, there are no users or auth in this app today. We want to keep it that way. And so what V0 will do is it'll start working, and we can click into one of these skills to actually look at what the individual skills page looks like. So this is the individual skills page. Hopefully it implements the rating system somewhere in this sidebar or maybe at the top of the screen. That's where I can actually pick 1 out of 5 stars to implement. So you'll notice V0 started cooking. It actually is able to use information from the dev environment, things like it's able to check that we have a Redis integration actually connected. It's able to find environment variables and actually use those when working. So while it's cooking, I'm going to show you some other new cool parts of the UI. The first is our new Git panel. So under the hood, what actually happened when I created this new chat against the repository is V0 created a new branch off of main, which is the base branch we use for this repo, that it actually is able to work on. And it's actually named just like normal conventions are. It's named with my username, which for GitHub is RMONK. And right now it's a random hash so that I get a unique branch name. It also tells me that this branch right now is up to date with the remote, and right now we haven't created a PR yet, so it tells me that there's no PR created. And I also got a little activity log that tells me when I created the chat, when we created new branches, and when commits and PRs are open, we see those in this tab as well. The second thing I want to show off is not only do you have the ability to prompt against your preview, you actually have a fully running VS Code instance that you can use to manually edit files if you need to. And so what we can do is actually any of the files that we see in this application, we can actually open them directly in V0 in this nice little VS Code instance and modify these files manually if we wanted to. You also get all of the native VS Code functionality. So the command palette works. You can actually do Command Shift P to get the actual command side. You can do global search over files. You can do search and replace. There's a split view. Pretty much anything that you could get in VS Code, you're going to get for free in V0. And so while V0 is cooking, let's read some of the work that it's doing. So first thing V0 does is actually going to lay out a plan for what it wants to do. So it's saying first it's going to create a ratings API endpoint that stores rating in Redis. It's telling me that it already knows that we're using IO Redis directly, but it's going to choose to use @up/Redis because we actually have an upstash instance included. It's going to use IP-based rate limiting to prevent spam. That's pretty cool. It came up with that solution itself, and that's probably what I would implement myself if I was doing this, by writing code manually. And it's going to store the ratings under a key like rating skill source. That's great. It's not going to conflict with the existing keys we have. And finally, it's going to add a rating component, and then it's going to fetch and display the average rating on the leaderboard. That's pretty great. That's a pretty good plan. I think that's probably what I would do if I was implementing this myself. And then V0 is going to actually start cooking. You can see that it's actually starting to create the files that it needs and the components it needs to make this work. And it does these iteratively, right? It's actually going to go through the steps that it laid out and try to do these one by one, so it doesn't get overwhelmed by the context. So it created the API endpoints, then it actually created the components that we need to show for inline. At any point in time, if it needs to get additional context, it can go back through my code base, it can search for files it needs, and use that to actually inform the decisions it makes. And then finally, it's actually going to update the UI on our homepage to be able to show the average ratings. And then it'll give me a running preview of the new thing that's working. While that works, I'm going to show you some other cool things that you can pulled in directly from the Vercel dev environment. The first thing is environment variables. As I mentioned, V0 is able to actually pull in your environment variables directly from your Vercel project. And so you can see here, we have all these environment variables already set up. I didn't have to go in and manually copy and find all these environment variables, load them into this kind of cloud dev environment, and then work on them. They were just there. They work automatically whenever you need them. They're also limited to an environment, right? So some of the variables we have are only in production and preview. Some of them are in all of our environments. They're in dev, prod, and preview, mimicking exactly how Vercel would handle these kinds of things. And so the final thing is you can actually look at integrations. So you can see there's a few integrations already installed in this application. We're using Redis, Upstash in particular, to actually make that work. And yeah. So when the agent is done working, what we get, hopefully, is a new version of our application with this kind of feature implemented. So let's go. So there we go. So we can see already that on our base page, we have this new ratings column that actually implements the ratings kind of system I wanted. Let's pick one of these skills. I'm going to go to Find Skills for now. There we go. On the right side of the sidebar, I get this nice little ratings widget. It says that it has no ratings yet. I've used Find Skills. It's pretty good, but not the coolest skill I've seen. So I'll give it 4 stars. And there we have it. It gives me 4.0 with 1 rating. And then let's go back to the skills page and make sure that that updated. And there we have it. Find Skills has 1 rating, which is a 4.0. So I'm pretty happy with this. This is pretty cool. The final step is actually opening a PR for this. And we can actually do that directly from V0. V0 will give me the option to open a pull request directly from the interface. It'll open a PR, and it'll actually give me information about that directly. So we are working in our dev environment right now, but we sometimes want to check to make sure that the changes we made reflect better in an environment closer to production. And so what Vercel gives you is a preview URL protected behind auth, which actually uses the same exact, very similar infrastructure to our production deployment. So you get the benefits of CDN and all the other things that Vercel does to make your production deployments really, really fast and really, really great. And so I can test this out. It looks like that's correct. I got the features I wanted. And if I'm happy with it, I can actually, if I wanted to, directly merge this PR right from V0. If I wanted to look at it more, I could actually go to GitHub directly from here. You'll see V0 actually created a PR for me. It wrote a really nice description. It titled my PR. And all of my CI/CD actually runs directly in this pipeline without needing to do anything differently than I would do if I was pushing this code myself. We're really excited for this new version of V0, and we'd love for you to give it a try.
All right, everybody, I'm so excited that we all get to use the new V0 today. Head to v0.app. You can start shipping things right now, right this second. Set it up for your teams and organizations. Also, don't forget to download the V0 iOS app so that you can start prompting on your computer and take it on the go. V0 for production, for real apps, and for agents is ready today. Thanks for joining us.